All right, friends, it's time to talk about facility site and design. So we've got a few chapter objectives here, and the first one is really to understand why the site location for a site is so important, the different aspects that really make it so important to understand that facility site in the design process. Then analyzing the different components that an organization or a committee needs to consider when choosing that facility site. And then finally, analyzing the different issues from an external perspective that are going to be impacting that facility site. So that's a few things that we're going to be getting into, hopefully, as objectives. So right off the bat, when we're talking about facility planning and site planning, we really need to convene a site planning committee. And this is going to be important whether it's a public facility, a private facility, public finance, private finance, because that facility committee is going to really go through the process and hopefully develop a mission statement in terms of what will drive the different aspects that are available and what the site planning committee emphasizes as being most important. In addition, a SWOT analysis is certainly helpful for a site committee because, again, a SWOT analysis is identifying the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats within a given situation or having to deal with an issue. Here, the SWOT analysis would be for the potential facility from a site planning and design standpoint. So we might, what are some of the inherent strengths of this facility site? Is it going to be inexpensive land, or is there great support amongst the community? Where the weaknesses is the neighborhood in which the land is located is in rural area that's undeveloped, or maybe it's actually congested or in a undesirable area. Or does the facility, does the area actually need extensive infrastructure repair? Opportunities could be that this is an underserved community in terms of your sport or the recreation opportunity. And the threat on the converse side could be that there are potential competitors nearby. So those are some aspects that might go into a SWOT analysis. Now, in terms of potential site considerations, now, although there's no true formula for determining how big or small a facility is going to be, what is important for potential sites is understanding the geography. What is the actual soil makeup, or what is the vegetation that is around the facility? Is there any sort of geographical issues? And then from from an environmental standpoint, are we in a potential flood area? Or from a population standpoint, is the population going to be large enough to accommodate the facility and make it worth the while of the individuals? What is the residential status within a walking radius? Is there certain utilities already in place? Or is this a rural area that needs to be developed? And then in terms of constituency, maybe from a political perspective, is there the political capital to actually push this facility forward, or is this going to be an uphill battle where those who are part of the planning committee will have the difficulty handling those who might be opposed to this facility? And then, of course, from a general climate perspective, what is likely to occur in this geographic location? Are we dealing with the facility, potentially this land being in the path of tornadoes or hurricanes, this is in a flood zone, et cetera, et cetera. And certainly for some facilities, they need a field or an area that's going to be acceptable for environmentally at risk chemicals. So runoff water that might have chemicals or some sort of pollutants from cars and nearby parking lots, is that going to congregate somewhere near the facility that's not going to be environmentally dangerous? So that's certainly important. There's also issues regarding to capital improvements. So What is the sort of potential aspects for actually improving the area? Is there going to be a need to put in hard sink money in for improving roads or for different sort of infrastructure? Is zoning an issue? So, of course, zoning and land use have to do with how the local government regulates how property can be used. If the property near or around where you want to build is not zoned commercial or not zoned for the proper build, then the organization might have to actually apply for or require a zoning change called a variance. So it's important that the correct zoning and land use maps are in place. And then also that has to do with potential for light and noise pollution to be an issue with the surrounding neighbors, which and that goes really to acreage. Is there enough acreage to accommodate the other structures that might be part of this facility or parking or related areas? And are the neighbors going to be far away, far enough away that they're not going to be adversarial to that process? So certainly that's going to be important. And when we're talking about planning for the user, we need to also find out, well, what is really the most important aspects to those who use the facility? What groups are going to actually be able to effectively use that facility? And what does the community itself want to use the facility for? So these are sort of stakeholder issues that need to be addressed. In addition, acreage is going to be important because a facility is only as valuable as the amount of acreage around it to accommodate expansion or proper utilization of that space. So if the facility runs out of space fairly quickly, that really becomes a big issue. Above and beyond sort of the shape of the plot, and that has to do with maybe not wasting space. Topography is also important because of trying to level the terrain and making sure that there's no steep slopes. And like I said, zoning is important. And then access is going to be important in terms of are there egress and ingress lanes for incoming and outgoing traffic, local streets, access to things like that. And really, we see this as being important from the Arizona Coyotes as an example. So site location is extremely critical. And the Arizona Coyotes, initially when they moved to Phoenix in 1996, were playing in downtown Phoenix. However, they were renting as tenants from the entity that owned the Phoenix Suns. And because the Coyotes organization wanted to design a hockey-specific facility that did not waste space and also wanted to own the facility so they could take all the revenues, the Coyotes ended up working with the city of Glendale, Arizona, which is a suburb outside of Phoenix. It's about a 45-minute drive. West, southwesterly, or maybe southeasterly, but the city of Glendale was able to procure land that was near where the University of Phoenix Stadium was being built. So let's see here, my little laser pointer. So this structure right here is the University of Phoenix Stadium, and that is where the football team, the Arizona Cardinals, played. And then right here was a mixed-use facility that was anchored by this building right here at the time called Jobbing.com Arena. And Jobbing.com Arena was built for the purpose of hosting the Arizona Coyotes. It was built by the city of Glendale. City of Glendale was the tenant. So there's different political considerations here. We had the city of Glendale and also other entities such as probably the Arizona Department of Transportation helping with infrastructure, because as you can see here, this was built on farmland pretty much for the most part. There is some housing right here, but right here is farmland, right there is farmland, all around is farmland or desert, and certain infrastructure changes needed to be made to accommodate several professional sports organizations. And on top of that, there's issues with grading and environmental aspects to make sure that that the facility had level grounds that would be suitable for construction. There would be access to roads to handle traffic and also building the facility, and then dealing with getting permitting from government to do the construction, and then having proper utilities going in there so that the utilities can support the facility. But here's the issue: is that the city of Glendale and the Coyotes really have been adversaries for about 15 years, which has made life difficult for both parties. So those political partnerships really impacted how the facility was built and the relationship thereafter. And the community has not exactly supported the Coyotes. Not as many people are driving all the way out from Scottsdale or Phoenix, and here in Glendale, there's not as many people coming as well because of accessibility. Although the facility itself is very nice and accessible, getting out there has become a problem. So site location is certainly critical. Now, once the site actually has been procured and identified, then we need to talk about the site plan. And in terms of selecting the proposed site, there's different features of the site plan that must be considered. So those off-site nuisances like rivers or sewage treatment plants, anything that would be undesirable to those who go to your facility, making sure to minimize that. Safety factors, making sure that there's proper sight lines in the facility, and then roads going in, proper drainage in terms of preventing flood zones, fencing, fencing to make sure that different areas are properly separated and protected, making sure that the walkways within the facility are safe, pursue and meet Americans with Disabilities Act requirements, which we'll talk about later, making sure that the actual facility is well lit, and that that there will be appropriate resources allocated for maintenance. All these different aspects are very important as you go through the creation of your facility. Now, once you actually understand what type of facility you want to construct, cost is very important. And please note that just like in the traditional real estate market where location is a premium, facilities that are built in the most desirable areas are going to be the most expensive. So we really need to ask from a planning perspective, how much can we afford for the facility that we want to construct? How much will land cost? Who's going to pay for it? How much money will be left over after you're done for the operation of your facility? So these things are all very important. Are you going to value the facility by how much the land is worth plus the improvements on the land? Or how much are you going to use comparables for different sites? So there's several ways to actually account for the cost. And then taxes and fees should be also factored into the cost of the facility. Although because these types of facilities, because politicians or civic leaders often look at the building of these facilities under their watch as a feather in their cap, or perhaps they want to use it to drive economic development into their facility. Some civic leaders and politicians will actually charge very little in terms of a tax rebate or abatement, so that taxes are waived, and that could be a sweetheart deal. So you need to really think to yourself when you're going through cost considerations, whether or not you actually want to build a facility and bear the cost, but then also bear the benefit, or lease a facility, because certainly there's differences between buying and leasing. When you're buying a property, you're going to be paying for all of the different aspects, not only the parking lots and the facility itself, but heating and ventilation, the air conditioning, the HVAC, the actual concession areas, the both the shell and the interior. You'll be responsible for when things break down, so it's going to be very expensive, but you also are able to not have to answer to another party who would be leasing the facility to you. You could also think about potentially a buy to lease deal, or at least to buy, lease to buy, where you might start off leasing the property and then at the end of the term have the option to buy the property. So there's different ways, but you should really think about what issues should be part of that consideration process when you're thinking about potentially buying a property. A lease might be more economical in the short term, but buying it provides more flexibility. So some benefits of buying, like I said, you're looking more on a long-term standpoint. It's not going to be just planning for 5 years and then getting out. Could be planning for 30 to 40 years as the facility goes through its life cycle. There's also the increased incentive to actually invest in the facility since you own it, as opposed to the landlord might not be apt to invest in the property as much if the landlord is not going to get as much benefit out of that bargain with the lessee and lessor. You can prepare and deal with unique facility needs and also invest in land. You can buy up more land around the area or build improvements into the surrounding land to increase the potential revenue generating capacity. In terms of things that are going to be detrimental to buying, this should make sense. It's going to be expensive. The cost of procuring land and then making it suitable to build on, whether it's through leveling, grading, dealing with environmental issues, dealing with drilling, accessibility, helping with utilities, that's all going to be at a large cost. And then you're not even going to be talking about the actual building of the facility. So that's going to be prohibitively expensive potentially. There's also need to potentially borrow money if you don't have that money. There's the requirement to pay taxes unless there's a sweetheart deal that's worked out with the local government. And then you as the entity are in charge of all the environmental issues. But of course, the benefit is once you build the facility, you own it and you can do with it what you wish and maximize the revenue generating capacity as much as possible. The textbook mentions that some benefits to leasing are that rent is tax deductible because it is a business expense. You don't need to wait to build the facility. You can move right in. So it's going to be more expedient in terms of leasing. There's no large investment. You're just paying your monthly rent so long as you don't breach the lease. And most facility leases are going to have clauses in there that say that the landlord is the one that's going to be responsible for paying for any problems or issues with the facility. So so long as that clause is in the lease, that should be no problem. But there are some problems in terms of that the one who is leasing the facility does not have complete control of that facility in terms of how to use that facility. So you need to get authorization from the landlord, and that could put a damper on the plans that an organization has for a facility. You're not going to have absolute control. And there's really no growth option here because you don't own the facility. There's also a potential for a change in paying more rent. So these are definitely things that need to be considered. Now, when you're talking about your site selection, sort of as your final decision process, remember the importance of a feasibility study, both from an economic standpoint and an impact study. Does it make sense economically and politically? Although this is not going to be the end-all, be-all. It's not going to actually fully influence the site selection committee. Dealing with permitting, what sort of aspects need to occur, from dealing with the government, getting license from the government, dealing with the lease of either land or the facility, and also environmental issues, regulatory issues, code, building codes, health codes, and then again going back to the community. Is the community going to get behind your facility, or are they going to be a thorn in the side? Other aspects are how you're going to finance the facility, public or private financing. And of course, public financing is going to deal usually with the government kicking in money and either Bonds could be funded through tax increases, or whether it's through income tax or sales tax or sin tax or an out-of-towner tax, or it could be used through traditional loans from a private perspective, or future revenue loans or revenue bonds. Easements, having to get authorization from third parties for the right to traverse other people's property so that your property can be used. Zoning, again, dealing with appropriate zoning. Restrictive covenants, a legal term of art that will be negotiated between two parties to prevent one party from engaging in sort of certain conduct. And then sort of the aesthetic value, what's that, is it aesthetically pleasing, and what recreational opportunities exist. So all of these aspects are going to be um, persuasive to that site selection community or committee. So there are definitely many issues that are going to affect that different location, and these are some of them. Like we talked about, what's the criteria for that site selection committee? And that criteria is really going to be based off of your SWOT analysis and dealing with different stakeholders. You go back to the Coyotes example, and really what was important for them was having large amounts of land and access to grow in a mixed-use area, and where they would have a advantageous lease. They certainly got that for the city of Glendale. What sort of competitive forces are out there? What competition exists? Who is going to be competing with the facility for customers or space? How suitable is the site to meet the needs of the site selection committee? Are there any sort of restrictions? Are there other locations that could be just as good as the one you're looking at? The location of the land, any sort of issues involving how the sites can be developed, environmental factors, leasing versus purchasing, tax implications. And again, going back to the mission and the goals of the facility from a mission statement perspective that the site selection committee is going to create. Any sort of regulations, any sort of concerns with the neighborhood or the valuation of the property, particularly what stakeholders within the general vicinity that are going to have concerns with how the property is being built or being used. It goes back to the use of the property environmentally or business-wise, and then whether or not there's light pollution or noise pollution. So certainly, again, understanding the importance of the location of the proposed site cannot be overstated enough. These different components of the site selection process are pretty overwhelming if the site selection committee is uninformed about the different complexities of site selection. And then the different external aspects that come into play are also going to be very important. So just sort of a brief summary of the different aspects that influence site selection and design. The design aspect we didn't really talk about. I will leave that to you to take a look in the book, and we'll talk about that in class. But certainly finding the right site for a facility is going to be an arduous process, and it's going to take considerable amount of time and analysis by that site selection committee. But you're also going to have to work with different stakeholders like members of the community, different members of the political class. And then the cost of the facility is going to be important from both a public finance or private finance standpoint, and understanding really what is the proposed use and what's important to that facility in terms from a design perspective. So that's just a little bit, a brief introduction to facility site and design. And I look forward to talking about this in class, and hope you enjoyed.